Hello, everyone. It's Dan King here from Fireside Strategic. It's my pleasure to be doing another interview in our exceptional mental health interview series, where we profile clinicians who are at the front lines of doing the work of balancing business outcomes and great outcomes for clinicians and patients in the super exciting and important mental health industry. I'm joined today by Priya Tahim, the founder of Core Counseling. Hi, Priya.
Hi Dan, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Good. Enjoying the weather.
How hot is it in Dallas today?
It's actually not too bad today, so that's why I'm enjoying it. It's about like 85, so
Ooh, okay. You're competing with Miami. I think we're at about exactly the same temp.
yeah, so it's not our 100-degree weather like we've been having.
The last time I was in Dallas, I think it was 105, and even though I live in Florida, even I was a little terrified.
hmm
So, Priya, I'm curious to just start with your background for listeners. Could you lay out kind of your journey in working in a group practice and then starting your own?
Yeah, so I guess I can start with like my journey of working at a group practice. I began working in private practice while I was doing my internship actually in Dallas, and then when I moved to DC, I joined like a larger group practice, and I had a great experience. I can't say a single negative thing about working at the group practice I was at. I was incredibly grateful to have a supervisor and mentor that I still actually consult with now, even though I have my own. Um, I think the one thing I can say I took away from like working at a larger group or like a larger scale group practice was that the importance of having a team and an importance of like even though we work in such an isolating field to kind of work in conjunction with other therapists or associates at your practice to kind of just connect and have that like team feeling or team vibe.
Yeah, it's so important. The work can be extremely isolating,
hmm
and I think mental health is unusual in that sometimes there's identity issues about whether our teams are W-2s or 1099s. We may have people that are on our team, but they may also run their own business, and sometimes there can be some identity confusion there.
Yeah, definitely. I think the part of the group practice that was also really helpful is that we were run as 1099, so we had the experience of like learning to have our own business, which was nice. And I think that definitely prepared me for when I opened my practice in what was it, November of 2020. So like in the midst of the pandemic, I kind of just like branched off on my own and I don't think I would be as successful as I am without having that experience working with the group practice I was at before.
Could you say more about what you learned there that is helping you succeed more now?
Yeah, I think the importance of like being confident in like when you're calling clients to kind of build a rapport, kind of getting them on the books. I think it can always be very intimidating working in private practice, especially when we don't take insurance, where, oh my gosh, when is the next client going to come through? Or am I going to be able to retain clients at the fee that we have? And one thing my mentor, my previous supervisor had shared was that it's about the quality of service we're providing, and it's you have to know your worth in order to kind of like be confident in trying to like almost like selling yourself, like you're selling your services. And so that was like a major thing that I've learned. I learned from that practice and from my mentor, especially because growing up, I was never like this most super confident person out there. I've definitely become more confident as I've become more confident in my career.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's helpful. And so, both your current practice, I know that your current practice is out of network, you don't accept any insurance, but the practice that you did your training in and that you worked in prior to creating your practice, was that no insurance either, totally self pay?
Yes, we were out of network, so we were classified as out of network, but we were all self-pay.
Okay, interesting. And for your own practice, was it always a given that you were going to do purely self pay, or did you contemplate going the insurance route?
No, I think having the experience of working like as a private pay in my the previous group practice, and then also working in the hospital systems and working for just community mental health agency, I kind of had like a dip in both worlds. And I saw that there was a lot more restrictions working with insurance than there was with working with private pay. And what I mean by restrictions is that with insurance, there tends to be like an X number of sessions that are covered, or like you have to submit certain like diagnosis codes. And I believe that not everybody needs to be labeled as soon as they come in through the door, but the care does need to be quality. And I just feel like you get kind of boxed into a corner with what you're able to do with your client if you're having to follow these like almost like absurd like rules.
There is something Kafka-esque about the way insurance companies function, and yeah, as you know, the incentives are very different. So if I'm, I'm totally relying on insurance to cover all of my mental health needs, my incentives are going to be a little different because as soon as self-pay enters into the equation, I may think, ooh, I don't know that I want to proceed, but it might actually be in my interest to proceed.
Yeah, definitely. And like even sitting on the other side of the couch, like I've used therapists that it only took insurance, and
Yeah.
the quality, and I'm not saying that every therapist is like this, but just my personal
Yes.
experience, like there was
Yes.
a stark difference in the quality of care that was provided. And I think that goes into that whole like burnout sector, or they're not getting compensated fairly, and we're human too.
And sorry, I couldn't hear your last line there.
Oh, I said we're human too. So like,
Yes.
compensation, as much as it like it's not often talked about, it does matter in our field.
It certainly does. Could you say more about the relationship between competition and burnout? Like, how do those two things flow together?
Oh, sorry, compensation or competition?
Compensation
Oh,
and burnout.
compensation.
How do
Okay.
those two
Yeah.
flow together?
Yeah, I think that I mean, if you are coming from like a single income household, you have to make a certain amount in order to sustain your lifestyle. So if you're only getting paid X amount for each session and that's not sustaining your lifestyle, how are you going to be able to provide the best quality of care for somebody else when you're not taking care of yourself? So I think, when I first started in 2011, right out of, in the mental health field, right out of my bachelor's program, I was making $27,000 a year. I couldn't live by
Yeah.
myself. And most of my friends were coming from different fields, starting out with 60, 70K. So there was a huge stark difference in like your social lives as well as
Yeah.
like what you were kind of bringing to the table.
Yes.
Fortunately, like I was able to kind of find a good supervisor and work on my skill set while getting my master's program. And then I kind of saw the benefit of working in a private practice, or benefit of working with like companies that actually care for their clinicians rather than just focus on the business side or the money making side.
And now that you're running your own practice, how do you think about care for your clinicians?
It's really important to me. So, like I said, I started off with a very low salary. And so, for me, the number one thing that was I want to provide compensation to my clinicians in a way that they don't feel like they're struggling. They're making good money. It's a good incentive to stay at the practice, and they're investing in themselves. And in order to invest in their clients, and so that's what I strongly believe, that you have to make the investment in order to find that good quality care.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And how do you select for clinicians? So if high quality care for the patients is important, you're going to need very high quality clinicians. So as you kind of build this world of abundance, this ecosystem of abundance, right? How, I'm curious, do you select for those high quality clinicians?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do a very like vigorous interview process, and I think when I first started out, I did make the mistake of like hiring too fast, in terms of like I don't know if I was putting enough thought into like the clinicians I was actually hiring, versus like I was operating out of need and necessity
Yes.
versus like want and nurture. And now, fortunately, I'm at the place where I have a really great team, and so I can have the time and energy I need to kind of go through the clinician interviewing process, and then making sure they're a really good fit for the team. So not only do I interview them, I have my two associates sit in into the second round of interviews and make sure that they cohesively can work together, as well as like they're able to ask questions from the other side. They're not coming just from leadership; they're coming from a place of like they've been at the practice, and this is what they think a new clinician should have.
Yes. Yes. Hiring is so important in the industry right now because for many reasons, but one of them is that there's a labor shortage, right? It's hard to find
Hmm.
the good quality clinicians. So, for those practice owners that are looking to improve their hiring game, are there any questions or thoughts that you could offer them for how to do that vigorous interview process that you talked about?
I would definitely say like figure out what you want out of a clinician. So I think that's something that I'll be upfront. I've been trying to hire for the past year another clinician, and so it's not easy. I still haven't found somebody that I think would be a great fit. But I think definitely having like a specific need that you want out of the clinician, as well as like how can you like what is a clinician going to benefit from the practice and what are you going to benefit from the clinician, like it's at the end of the day it is a business decision,
Yes.
but it's
Yes.
not only on the business side. You want to make sure that it's a healthy environment, and so definitely having that descriptive, I guess, like need, if you will, that would be my number one advice.
Yes, yes, sort of reverse engineer things a bit. Really understand what is this value exchange going to be for both parties,
Hmm.
and it can be hard to distinguish yourself too, right? So many practices can seem similar. So, in a labor shortage environment, a practice owner is pitching themselves, is pitching their practice to high quality talent, and so probably important, I would assume, to talk about what's distinctive about the identity of your practice.
Definitely. I think I like to pride myself in calling us a boutique practice because, I mean, again, we are private pay, so you want to make sure that we're worth the services. And I heard this
Yes,
analogy one time that if you pay for fast food, if you pay the fast food prices, you're going to get fast food service. But if you pay for the
right.
fine dining prices, you're going to get the fine dining service. And so I like to classify us as a fine dining of the group practice world.
Yeah, we're very aligned on that. When we think about our practice acquisitions, I did a lot of research on BetterHelp and Talkspace when I was starting Fireside. And it in many ways struck me as kind of the Uber of therapy. And not to say that that has no place at all, but it's very much not our focus.
Yeah, I mean, and I think those are great resources for, I think, that people who don't have the access to some of these like more intense therapy sessions. But I also think it's like a double-edged sword. We've had clients come in that have tried those services and said that they've met with like four different therapists within a span of 2 weeks.
Yes, 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 exactly, exactly. That's what I have found as well. Coming back to self-pay, I'm curious. I mean, one of the implications of running a self-pay practice is you got to get good at marketing, right?
Hmm.
So with insurance companies doing less of the customer acquisition for you, your marketing game needs to be on point. So I'm curious what you have learned about marketing over these 3 years.
Different platforms bring in different clientele. I think that word of mouth and rapport is like the number one marketing tool that I think has, knock on wood, been the benefit of my practice. And then we do use the therapy search engines like Psychology Today, Therapy Den, Good Therapy. And then because I opened the practice initially to open the doors to those communities of color that had a stigma with therapy. And so I think also like use honing in on like what sites are specific to those communities of color. So for example, I'm South Asian. There's a South Asian therapist website, and so I definitely use that marketing tool for myself. But two of my clinicians, they enjoy working with diverse populations. So one of them is really big on I think it's called inclusivetherapy.org or something like that. So there's a lot of different search engines. You just have to really figure out what your practice is going to offer that engine, and then kind of work to see if those clients are bringing in the niche that you and your practice has.
Yes, yes, yes. That makes a lot of sense to do that in a targeted way. And
Hmm.
speaking of targeted ways, so it's a boutique practice, right? You're offering a fine dining style service. How do you think about growth? Is it something that you want to do slowly in order to preserve the integrity of the service, or do you see yourself scaling up a little bit more aggressively?
I think I definitely see myself going down the slow and steady process. I do eventually want to open a second location. So I'm currently in the process of looking in Dallas to figure out like where the need is. Right now I do accept virtual clients in Texas, but I think I want to open like a physical location within the early parts of 2024. But that's just kind of been like, so I'm going on 3 years with my DC practice. And we take virtual clients from Virginia as well in that practice. And then, so I guess it's been like a whole 3 years in the making to figure out if expansion
Yeah.
is like, if you're able to expand.
I think there's a lot of practice owners sometimes have this kind of mimetic desire to expand. And the reality is, especially if you're the sole owner and you want to build a practice that works for you and a small team, it may not mean growing aggressively. There's no hard and fast rule that says that you have to, right?
Yeah, it's not, I think you're only in competition with yourself, right? Like I think every practice is definitely like a different vibe or different environment. Like my group practice I previously worked with, I still meet with my mentor every couple of months, and a couple other girls started their own practice, but we're all very much like aligned in terms of like what we do, but each practice offers something a little bit different.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And so the practice that you started in, I'm curious. So it sounds like that one was quite a bit bigger, right?
Well, I guess it started off like with a smaller team, but very quickly, I guess also with the need, and my supervisor had been doing it for a very long time, so it quickly grew into like a larger team of like 5 to 6, and then now I think she's up to like 15. So she was able to expand to the scale that she wanted to, and I think it's great. Again, she's like my mentor, and I look up to
Yeah.
her.
That's fantastic that you've maintained the mentorship relationship even after moving on. I think relationships that are long lasting, especially in a field like mental health, are so valuable because someone has seen our growth as a clinician. Not many people will have known us for that long, and so probably there's a deeper level of insight that he or she may be able to offer.
Oh, definitely.
Excellent, excellent. Well, as we start to move towards the end of our conversation, maybe one or two more questions. I'm curious on the patient outcome side. So, it's clear that you're building a fine dining service. You hire top quality clinicians. That's part of how you're able to provide good service. But I'm curious what other insights pop to mind that you might offer clinicians who maybe are around the same size of practice as you. What insights might you offer about how to provide just incredible service?
I think definitely like I said, the team aspect for me is huge. So like just because I'm the founder and owner doesn't mean I know everything. So I do like case consult with my two associates. In fact, yesterday we jumped on a call randomly just to kind of chit chat about like, what or what to do with a specific case, as well as like what their needs are, like coming from the practice. So I'm consistently asking them, like, is there anything that I could be doing better, or anything that you'd like from the practice that you're not getting? And the other side of that too is like going and doing like your CEUs. Obviously, we have to do our continuing education credits for our licensure, but like doing ones that actually benefit you and your practice, I think is really important. So like not just doing like these online ones, although the online ones are great when you're short on time, but I think taking the time out to invest again back in yourself and the practice.
I think online learning is in so many ways such a double-edged sword. I remember when I used to be a lawyer, I would have to do continuing education credits, and sometimes the availability, the ease, right, of, oh, here's an online thing, I can just I can cross the box, right? And there's yes, I've got to get it done, but there's a way in which I'm diminishing my relationship with learning. I'm starting to treat it as this mechanistic, who gives a shit kind of process. And
Yeah.
right, and there's an opportunity cost in that.
Oh, definitely. Like I think also like the benefit of going to like even if it's like an online like live event, I think that's a
Yeah.
huge difference in like just doing the computerized like take this test and you've got your CEU. Because at the end of the day, like things are consistently changing. Like I mean I don't think that obviously definitions in the DSM are all very similar, but like new modalities are coming out, we're learning new scientific background on certain like forms of depression and anxiety that unless you keep up with that, it's really hard to treat it.
Yeah, it's such a massive problem. It's the greatest source of disease burden on the planet, right? Mental health, and it's evolving so quickly. And we live in just such challenging times from a mental health perspective that it is incumbent on clinicians to really keep up to date.
Definitely. And so it's nice that some of my associates are into like different types of treatment because they'll teach me things that I don't even know about,
Yeah,
like using like there's a like I know psychedelics are a huge new
yeah,
thing and I know nothing about that realm, and so it's really nice to kind of find out like learning experience from people who
yeah.
have taken the trainings.
Yes, yes. Talk therapy is a beautifully, scientifically proven thing, but there's so many complements to it. And we talked about
Hmm.
prescribing a little bit at the beginning. Psychedelics are a whole new world. There's TMS. There's all kinds of potentially complementary or alternative treatments in mental health. And it can be very hard
Definitely.
to know what is the right treatment, right, for this particular patient.
Yeah, it's not we're not just the only provider. You definitely have to work with your care team around you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I'm curious as we come towards the end of our time together to ask on a human note, any show about mental health has to have some humanity in it. So when you're not working on your group practice, what do you do for fun?
Well, I do write, so I published my first children's book around mental health in the pandemic as well. I hang out with my family and my friends, and I love to travel and I love to uh, create new recipes in the kitchen. So
Okay. What kind of food do you cook and what's next on your travel list?
I cook well, just about everything, but I love making tacos and fajitas. It's just like I'm a girl from Southern girl, so from Texas. And then
Yeah.
I just came back from a Euro trip, but I do want to do Asia next. So hopefully in the next year or two, I'll make my way over there.
Yes. Fingers crossed. It's been a
Yes.
pleasure, Priya. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Really, really good to have both the perspective of working in a group practice, but also starting your own and doing it in a way that is really thoughtful. You're not tomorrow trying to, hire 10 billion clinicians. It wouldn't be possible anyway.
Yeah.
So really appreciate your perspective.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.